that maybe the next big thing is actually having AI as an influencer who have like more this automated way of promoting things, and they still feel more real.
It was so great to sit down with Robert Lukoszko in real life. This is someone that I've been following for a very long time, and I've noticed has been consistently ahead of the curve in applying AI in creative ways to new modalities. He was the first person that I ever saw do anything with live streaming in kind of an ambient AI manifestation, well early to the game on that. He's a YC founder. He's pivoted once, and he's onto something that's really interesting with his current project, Stormy, and we go through all of that. We talk not just about tech, but also about distribution and business model, and the drive to find the next big thing, the ambition that is wrapped up in Robert's tinkering. This is packed with actionable insights for anybody building an AI, particularly if you're an early stage AI founder. Enjoy. Hello, AI Tinkerers. I'm Joe, and we're here in Warsaw for another episode of One Shot. This is our global stage where we talk to people who are doing pretty innovative stuff in Gen AI in one way or another, tinkering, and we just give them a little more time so we can peek under the hood and hopefully enable a fellow tinkerer in their projects. I am super excited to have Robert Lukoszko here today and to have met you in person at the hackathon we were just at, because you're someone that I've known since before ChatGPT, when it was hard to find people who were doing stuff with LLMs. So it was really cool to see you in person, and it's been super fun to see all of your experimentation over the years online. And of course, we'll get into all of that and Y Combinator, visa issues, and mostly the technical stuff. But I'd like to cover it all if we can. Robert, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. Yes, I'm super excited to finally meet you. I think I've been at a lot of AI Tinkerers events remotely and physically in Zurich and Berlin, in Warsaw. And I guess the hackathon a couple of days ago was like another hit on this list.
Amazing. Yeah, that was a great show. And you guys were the classic ones where it's like, I'm wandering around to see, checking on you, see what you're working on. Of course, nothing to do with your startup, nothing to do with tinkering I've seen you do. You're trying to get a Unitree robot to like work autonomously, and then you had to pivot away halfway and do that. But it was great to see, like, again, just like, let's go do new stuff. Forcing function at a hackathon is great. Tell us, I don't know, where do you want to start?
I think my whole career started when I just made one of the demos about the local models, and it went extremely viral on Twitter. The Llama CBB founder noticed it. Andrew Karpathy liked it. Nice. It's like, it was going super viral. And basically what I did is that I was, before even the GPT Vision was released, the first version, literally 3 days before it, I have made a thing which was capturing my camera on my computer. And it was basically using the baklava model. Back then it was the state of the art, and it was explaining what does it see, and I was like showing objects. Here's another object, here's here's like my helmet. And I imagine, like, after this one, basically everyone else started to do those demos, and basically kind of kicked off this viral thing with showing your camera and explaining what does it do. And I guess it started with the local models.
I mean, that's a really cool whiz-bang thing to do at the time. It's still cool.
Yes.
I think the thing that really, for me, that's cool about it is like, it taps some kind of subconscious reaction. You have like everyone has been using computers for various amounts of time, but it's usually years, if not decades, right?
Yes.
And the modalities have been fixed.
Yeah.
And so to show something where like there's a real world thing and your voice and the computer changes and reacts, it's a different thing. Fundamentally, and it gets you excited, like, subconsciously. It's cool. I would love to see more of that still. I've always thought that, like, with tinkerers, you'd see more of these like crossing boundary user experience things than we have, but we're just early.
Exactly.
So it was very cool to see that one, and you did spark a lot of tinkering.
Yes, I feel like it kind of, I didn't realize it at the moment. It was like just pure experimentation. And I feel like at the moment I didn't realize how big it was. But after the people started to comment, they're like, oh my God, it can understand the video. It can understand what you're doing. Like, how crazy. It's like literally new dimension of things. And GPT-4 Vision was released like 3 days later, and it was even bigger hit. And I remember after this one, because, I have this tendency to notice the viralities, just like Thomas does. And I noticed the tendency of people like going, oh my God, visual stuff, insane. And I remember the next week, I basically doubled down on this one.
Cool.
And within a week, I made like, I think 4 demos, which got more than 400,000 views on Twitter.
Yeah, cool.
Some of them were even completely fake.
Yeah.
But you know, I was just like, you know, doing this stuff to like checking, wow, I can do this again.
Yeah.
Wow, I can do this again. It still works. It was like free money generator almost.
Yeah. That's really cool. When GPT-4 Vision came out, did they launch with the API at the same time? I can't remember.
I think they did. Yes, I think it was the big thing.
How soon did you port over the code that you written to use it?
Oh, it was exactly the same, right? It's like the functions were always the same. So I feel like people just overdid this. So like I did it with local models, and it was Llama CPP. It was a new branch. It wasn't even the main one. It wasn't unfinished pull request. And like after the GPT-4 version, it was so easy. There was like literally zero friction to make this happen.
Did that go to a startup idea, and that startup idea went to Y Combinator? And how is that what happened?
This was this was the thread of thought I had. It was it started like there. I was like, okay, what if I can see what's on my screen? What if it can see the visual stuff? What it can like interpret this? And I just started to experiment more with the local models. So not the visual stuff, but rather the local ones. And they're like explored more about, okay, local models, that's a desktop, 100% a desktop application. What is the coolest?
Your drive to explore local models, was that driven by what? Because they're private, because they're faster running locally, because why?
So first of all, it's kind of cool to understand that it can run just on your desktop without any connection to the internet. And I was like, I had an intuition that maybe there is a huge business case there. It turned out to be false, unfortunately. So intuition is not always right. But I started to explore and seeing like, okay, local models, a lot of people like it because of privacy. Because they're like, oh, my data is sensitive. It cannot leave the computer. And I explored this one. I saw where it leads. And like, long story short, it didn't work out as I expected, because local models, they're by definition free, kind of. They're working on a computer. You can make something amazing for the community, but the question is, will you make something like, will you make an amazing business use case out of it? And the answer was,
but do you think that's just early? I mean, what about it? I mean, you can, like, moments in time, right? Maybe it wasn't good. Your initial hypothesis at that moment in time, but you still believe that it won't happen? I mean,
so here's like the thing I realized, and which I confirmed to be true, is that the Azure allows you to really safely deploy GPT-4 on their servers, and they allow all the guarantees. And once you think about this, and you'll be like, okay, I can trust Azure because this is Microsoft, government use them, military uses them. I can also, like, it's kind of the same trustworthiness as the local models. The only difference is that local models are free. But they still use kind of a little power, but you can not think about this. And then you just think, okay, do I want to use extremely powerful model running in the cloud, which I can 100% trust because government even trusts this? Or should I run the model which is kind of doesn't have a good context, handicapped? I'm not sure it's really like that helpful. And the answer is that you always want to go, like, you want more with more.
The best, of course.
And that's like an unfortunate truth. I had to realize kind of a little bit late, but I think I made like the right shot going there and like trying to see if there is actually something amazing.
You guys felt that way up to date, where, you know, I think that my anecdote has been like everyone's tinkering with the local models and fine tuning and, you know, different distilled models and all things, but in production for their startup, they're paying up, and whatever's the best, even if it's not even price, it's the best is what they want.
Availability, inference speed. So you want like guarantees, and usually there is a team of 100 people working on those like GPT-4o mini just to make it amazing. The question is, will your 8B model fine-tuned will be better than the team of 100 people working on this one for 2 years?
Did you see the LlamaCon stuff today? The announcement on the API side, Meta has an API now for Llama 4.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, they have an API. And it's I just quickly saw some of the metrics, but like time to first token is like great, and I think speed is great, and price is great. So that's kind of open source coming up now, and having it on a cloud.
I feel like there is a point with an open source where it's open source for the developers to give Meta the feedback, because I mean, let's be honest, they have something, they want to earn money a lot, and they want to have great developers come into Meta, not OpenAI. And I feel like this is kind of the point where they made it open source because it's the advantage they can have. Not because they think it's right.
The first step, just having the API, that's not that interesting. It is cool, but whatever. I think they're going to be able to innovate much more quickly on things that have failed at OpenAI, like the GPT store and whatever. So
yeah, I think they can actually win with this if they're doing it all open source. They're focusing. This kind of their edge. They have they added this to the name. So Llama open source.
Let's bring it back to your stuff. So you have you did start to build a desktop app, and you can show that.
Yes.
You got into Y Combinator on that app.
Yes, I did.
And then you've gotten onto something totally different in the end, and you didn't end up going to California. So we'll talk about those two things secondly, but let's get to the desktop app. Show us the app. Tell us what
so this is it's one part of the app, and this is, I believe, the core functionality. And
would you mind turning your screen so I can see?
Sure.
Because my separate screen broke in my suitcase. Thanks.
Okay. So basically, on the right, this is like the prototype, which you can really quickly extrapolate to what it can actually be.
Yeah.
You have kind of a history of all the apps I have open. I have opened before. So before that, for example,
it's a history that you're recording, and you're watching them and saying, "Oh, I know what this person's been doing."
Exactly. So, for example, I opened the Xcode a couple of seconds ago, and it was like, okay, here's like some projects you're opening. It's like a small summary.
Okay, so you have like a log or a diary of what the user's doing, and you're gathering context through that.
Exactly. It's like a diary.
That's smart. Okay.
For example, here I opened the Reddit, where actually I was looking up my own tweet about this same product, which went viral.
It's Big Brother, but you're the Big Brother for you.
Exactly. So this is like one of the posts on Reddit, which got like 56,000 views. Like I made a couple of them, but this is like one of the, I believe, the coolest one.
Yeah, cool.
I tried to actually find a person to take over the project because I wanted to give up on this one at the moment, and I couldn't find anyone. Anyways,
cool.
So the idea is that it sees your screen. It kind of has a diary. And if you think that the most important thing in the future is going to be actually the context, is going to be about how AI can understand you. Yeah. And I believe the huge winner there is actually OpenAI. Yeah. They have all of I believe it can really good describe who I am, not because it has been spying on me, but because I sent it so many messages in so many different states of mind. Then I was thinking about the startup, then I was going for a walk, then I was just waking up and planning my day. Yeah. I think it understands me better than I guess my best friends are.
Yeah, but I mean, counterpoint, what you're showing here is getting a lot more context than I'm sending to OpenAI.
100%.
And that's
100%.
It's all about context. And then you could have a selector that kind of brings it in when needed on your behalf. That'd be killer.
Yes.
The whole problem with all the many tools that summarize emails and help you write a reply is because they don't have the context. It's even if they can get it to sound like me, which they usually don't, it's the wrong answer.
Yeah.
But if they had the context, it could also be the right answer.
Yes.
But I don't think they have the context. Yeah. And that's why I'm constantly gathering it and pasting it in or building some script or something.
Yeah.
The universal approach you're showing here is not the answer.
So there is a couple of things there. Yeah. Usually the context you kind of need it on the go. So for example, you open the email and I believe ChatGPT is already going into this direction, and that's kind of one of the reasons why.
They have the connectors. I haven't really. They've got for Google Docs and for Gmail and things, right?
Yeah, so they don't have this yet.
Right, that's true.
Right? But I know they're gonna have it. Yeah. Like there is no way they're not. They're really they're gonna have the browser next.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when I started working on this one, I mean, this is like already entrepreneurship mindset, not the AI tinkerers mindset. Is that you kind of just see that OpenAI has insane distribution.
Yeah.
If they cover just 80% of all your use cases, your customers are going to ask you, how are you different?
Yeah.
And if you're going to ask you, how are you different? And you just you're 20% better than OpenAI. Well, I pay for OpenAI subscription. Will you pay for another $20 subscription? I have doubts.
Yeah.
And this is why it was just a quick prototype. After OpenAI made their release, I was like, oh man, it's gone bad for me. And then I just okay, that's amazing prototype.
What was the timeline? Because I see product hunt, product of the day. When was that?
Oh yeah, so this is actually the fix key. That's that's the previous product.
Oh, okay.
It was just showcasing. But if I go to Hacker News, for example, here, it's gonna understand what screen I'm on right now.
I see. You're just in the screen. Got it.
Yeah, and
when did this? What I'm saying is, when did you build this application that we're showing here?
So I started prototyping this, I believe, almost 1.5 years ago.
Okay. And it got you into Y Combinator, but then since then you decided that
the local models were not the way to go. It was our pitch. Then basically we did this. OpenAI hit, and I believe every other competitor right now, they have a really their traffic just goes down, and I just see that what I thought in August about I have to give up. I love this, but I have to, because they're I cannot win this fight. I'm fighting against really big competitor.
Tactically, how did you go from like viral tweet to inspired to build the prototype to getting on Y Combinator's radar or getting?
I feel I was just like pushing a lot of content out because I was really excited about what I was onto.
Because you got drawn in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, basically one of the tweets, Gary Tan really liked it, and I think I asked him a question about, hey, like, what do you think about this? How should I approach this? And he was like, yeah, just apply to YC, we'll talk. And I feel like we just applied to YC. We showed him the prototype. We're like, okay, this works locally. Yeah. It's amazing. And he was also like a big believer in local models. This was like amazing match for all of us because I was into it, he was into it. Let's do this.
Cool.
Well, reality hit. It was pretty bad. Local models are not the best. Cool. I don't think there is a big business there. It's amazing hackers, indie hacking stuff to show around, to play around. Have a model like on small devices, but I have skepticism, unfortunately.
Yeah. You don't need a lot of bandwidth to get to the cloud to do something amazing with great models that are fast.
Right, like GPT-4o Mini just basically, I think, killed all the This was like when I think everyone realized. It's over.
What do you think about the desktop apps here? I don't know. Did you get much into actions? Like, ultimately, too, that's another differentiator, right?
Good
if
point.
I can press buttons and do stuff.
That's an amazing point. Yeah. I've prototyped a lot. First of all, macOS is pretty bad platform to do all those prototypes.
Wait, you got AppleScript?
No, I had something even better, but I tried AppleScript as well.
Okay. You can run terminal commands. I mean, what's bad about it?
So terminal commands, yes, but the question is, will the actually average user need that many terminal commands if he's not a coder? And the answer is, if you're a coder, you probably don't need that much.
But for the apps that you do use, getting into those is hard.
Yeah.
Is it computer? Are you really relegated to something like that, computer control, which didn't exist when you started this?
I feel like computer control is like the better way than the terminal, personally. And this is why I tried this one, where it clicks on the buttons on the screen, etc. Yes.
How you built your own, because they didn't have computer control then?
Yeah. Okay. So I built my own basically computer control. It can click on the buttons, and I had an amazing prototype demo on the Twitter actually, where it was highlight. Like I was in the Final Cut, and it was like, hey, how do I make this sound more like echo? So how do I make it different? And it was like, you should click here. And it showed me on my screen, what should I click?
Cool.
And like basically give me like a small note above it saying, you should click on this one, this explain them. And that
feels like a need or an opportunity of some level, right? That's not, you can't put that in the cloud, right?
Yes. I mean, because it needs to be on your computer, like in person.
And so what happened with that angle of it? That felt like something.
I kind of explored this. I talked to different companies, and I just realized that there is like a big learning opportunity there. So you can just help people kind of learn information. But it's more like, one-time use case. You like learn Final Cut once, and how many tools do you actually have? And if you kind of explore this thread even more, I ended up basically thinking, okay, well, actually, browser automation is actually where it actually leads. And if you read the post from the OpenAI, they actually also mentioned this, and I noticed that they're like, we tried to do this on your computer, but there is a problem. Like, you cannot do this. Like, I closed my MacBook. What's happened? Like, it's not going to work.
You can't do it in the background.
You can't do this in the background.
So that cuts off, because we're talking about Copilot type of use case, like a human in the loop style, helpful things. But for purely agentic things, you kind of have the same problem.
Yeah, I feel you need to run this in the background. You need to have I have to look at this.
What about that? Like, doesn't Apple have some kind of remote desktop or like VPN, or they have their own version of that stuff? VNC.
Yeah, and this is why it's better to do it on Linux or Windows.
Exactly. I was thinking like maybe the angle is like a B2B thing where you're like going to have like, basically agent automation of the company happens to use Macs and Mac applications. So great, it's agents instead of humans doing the work. I don't know.
That's a good point. Explored this one as well. It leads to the browsers.
Yeah, it does. Okay, because most software you care about's in the browser these days. Is that why?
I think it's over the browser use cases are like first of all, the all agents are still kind of very early days. Like they're not working.
You mentioned you were at the Zurich AI Tinkers. Were you at the very first one or the first couple? Did you meet the browser use guys? They're from Zurich.
100%,
yeah. Okay, cool. Did you ever collaborate or ask them on that when you got around to the browser stuff, or when they? I don't know how.
I was actually doing the browser stuff before them.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay.
So kind of, I think we just exchanged the ideas about the browser use case, and they really like the open source approach. And I was like, I want to do kind of business, so I want to have a mode. And I was like, Open source, I think it doesn't really work for me in my current mindset. That they went really open source and it worked out great. I'm super happy for them.
Is there something on this desktop app that you can share, like maybe look under the hood and show us some of the code behind it, or some particular thing that you're proud of, or something that would be most useful to another person tinkering, I guess?
Let me see. So I think, 1 second, what is really interesting here? So I think like the whole desktop stuff on the macOS is not super pleasant to build, but you're gonna have to learn it once.
Yeah.
And basically there is like two systems when you're doing the macOS. Yeah. First system is basically which can allow you to kind of control your computer and like really talk to the systems, maybe like audio recording, maybe just take a screenshot, which is like, more low level. Yep. And there is another system which is a front end. Yep. And if you're picking framework like Electron or Tauri, I picked Tauri, which is like built in Rust, and I think Killian also picked it as well with the open interpreter. Yeah. And it basically allows you to be like use Rust to communicate with the computer. Yeah. And how it works is that Rust communicates, but you use the front end like React for nicer front end. And this is obviously a winner because if you're using Swift is awful to make any kind of apps. It's super restricted. Yeah. I built another app on the macOS myself in Swift. It was such a painful experience. I would never recommend it to anyone. But when I build in React, it's just a pleasure. Yeah. And basically, so how it works, like here I have a front end, right? Is you can imagine that this is just a web page open, which looks like a window.
Yeah, cool.
And one of the, like, for example, things I used is that macOS has like special kind of a window, which basically doesn't take the mouse focus. Okay. So, for example, I'm switching from let me just open here a browser, and I'm gonna switch to another app, and basically my cursor is being focused on the cursor. If I go to the arc, it's being focused on the arc. Yeah. But there is a special type of applications on the MacBook. For example, like Raycast has this where it doesn't take the focus away from the browser. Oh, cool. So your mouse. So if you click something here, you didn't have to like double click, so to say. Right, so it's kind of like it's almost like stealth. Sure. And here's the same application. Basically, I can click here straight away, or I can scroll here, and they're both working like actions. Cool. And this is like one of the things I had to figure out.
Is that a first-class thing in the OS X software architecture?
What do you mean first class?
Meaning it's a well-defined thing that you can tap into as well.
This is like it's like internal Apple way of building Windows. Okay. Windows meaning like the app window. Yeah. And you just have to kind of figure out what is the name of it. It's called NS Panel. Okay, yeah. And it's like they used it to build macOS. Yeah. They haven't really open sourced it, but there are some developers who figured this one out.
Interesting.
And this is why the whole pain point of building the macOS, you have to figure out stuff Apple built for themselves in order to use it, because they don't want you to use it. Yeah. And if they do, it's like in Swift.
But you need to use it, or else you're building an app that's in a little silo by itself. It's not well integrated. It's not magical. It's not
exactly.
What you're talking about is ambient AI, and you were the first to really show ambient AI. This stuff. Honestly,
yes.
People are now talking about it like a year and a half later. Yeah. But this really is that.
Yes.
In a way. Yeah.
And basically, what else is there? I feel like one of the cool things I realized is that there is a lot of things, for example, with a mouse capture, where you can track what is the exact location of your mouse you're moving. And you can, for example, maybe spot what is the user trying to do. Yeah. And you can, for example, maybe predict if you're if you're doing some action repeatedly, clicking and copy pasting, clicking and copy pasting. Yeah. Maybe there is a way how AI can learn this and be like, oh, you're clicking and copy pasting a lot. Let make this automation for you, or something.
Apple's so secretive. That we have people from Apple who come to the meetups and they don't even put their company name in there.
Yeah,
they're just. It's almost like they're
they're not cool
or something. It's not. Yeah, and it's like so it's hard to tell what's going on there. We only see the very visible things like Siri and how much it sucks.
Yeah,
I mean for dictation, it's a joke. And it's like and some of the most obvious ideas. If you were Apple, I know what you would do, right? I wonder how much they're doing. Turning to like the Microsoft side of the world, have you looked at what they're doing? Because there's a company that did like embrace Gen AI early, go all in, putting it everywhere. It's just now starting to surface out into the apps. Have they got stuff like this now, like ambient computing overlays, like coming? Is it?
That's a great point. Yeah. Actually, they have the tool which can record your screen and basically. It's like Rewind AI,
and I know they launched it and they had to unlaunch it because they got kind of pushback on privacy or something.
The security and privacy concerns. But I think it's like a great point. They tried to do something courageous. It takes courage for a company like this to do something with such a big security
that fast. Yeah,
and I think it's great that what they did. It was amazing. Like I think this is like a score to Microsoft and -1 point to Apple.
I agree. That's very cool. And so I guess did all of that all of those factors also, I imagine, affected your decision on doing this?
Yeah, I feel like there was like Revent AI, and I just kind of understood what have they tried to do, and what am I trying to do here, and I kind of realized those kind of limitations, and I was not super happy about them because I want to build a venture company. Like I'm not interested in anything less than $1 billion.
Back to like forgetting inside the business side of it, which is extremely relevant here in terms of decisioning it, but going just to the pure tech, that the vision of like this thing that's collecting context that's so personal and knowing like the models are getting smarter, faster, reasoning's here, long context is here. Putting those two together seems like it would be so useful. Did you ever experience that with the product and your own desktop when you're building? You know, you're building it and it's starting to work and you're playing with it and then it's like, oh my God. Did you have aha moments where because you were able to assemble this context passively that it was doing stuff that you're like, wow. Did you reach those moments?
I think I had a couple of aha moments, and they're all related to the area of replies and like writing something. So, for example, you can just say, okay, can you reply to this one, and it's gonna understand that you have seen this email before, or you wrote to this person like a message.
Or
like
you were working on a Google Doc about that topic over there.
Yeah,
which is right.
Yeah, and this just kind of captures this context and it'll like, let's reply.
Okay.
And I feel like this is where actually OpenAI with this like work with is going to capture the context, remember it, like work with Notion. They already have it. It feels amazing. I use it every single day.
It is an interesting vision though of like, you know, the AI is going to be present in all of the silos like Notion's AI, Superhuman's AI, etc., Google's AI. But I think the overlay is where it's powerful. You know, most product development teams, they use 5 different tools for 5 different things. You've got 100%. A ticketing system, you've got a support system, you've got documents, you've got your editor and your source repo, you've got your project tracking. Those are 5 different, not only 5 different tools, 5 different companies.
Yes.
Right? And so, and people have strong preferences about which ones they use.
Yes.
And some of these like Google, you know, are integrated into the email. You can't switch.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it'll ever be the case that like all of the context that's relevant for a particular decision or action will ever be in one vendor's thing. And it's too much.
Yes.
And therefore that this overlay will be very useful for agents to be useful in the workplace.
100%. And I feel like there is like another experience, like out of the macOS experience, there is like Glean.com company, which does this great, right? This search. Yeah. They have been in this search before it even happened. Yeah. And I think like they're also the biggest winner. Obviously, everyone trusts them. So this
I think Read AI is doing very well. Yeah. But they're just in the inbox at least now. But the inbox sort of is already an aggregator.
Yeah.
So that's very useful too.
And I feel like there is an answer which is like more personal, like the desktop application, which checks your screen, etc. And there is an answer where it's actually like you just give an accesses to those services, and it's almost like an MCP. And actually, MCP is a great answer to your question because if GitHub will have an API, Linear will have an API, and they'll already do. It's amazing just to ask them like to all connect together and do something for you.
Do you know what Sesame is doing?
With the voice?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what they're actually doing as hardware?
No.
They're actually trying to build. Actually, the voice is just a piece of the bigger puzzle of building a device like this.
Oh wow!
That is like literally as normal as just a regular piece of glasses, but is seeing everything. So it's not like we've been talking this whole time about context in your screen.
Yeah, context for
like
life.
Everything, including your screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if their end game is business users or therapy, virtual girlfriend types. I don't know what it is.
Interesting.
But or a personal companion for everything.
Interesting.
Including business. I don't know how big the vision is, but that for all how fancy and amazing that voice conversational emotional thing was, it's actually just a small piece of the vision.
It's like Orion, right? From the Meta is they're having kind of similar stuff. I think Apple is also thinking about the AR glasses. Yeah. There is a couple of even crazy YC companies which are also doing this, like open source AR glasses. Yeah. And I feel like this is like definitely the future. There is like a really hard problem. I even talked to Thomas with about how you can. what are the fundamental problems of how you can, for example, present the information on on your glass to make sure it matches. Like, for example, it can highlight the camera, so it's contextually aware.
Yeah.
And that's like a hard problem to solve.
It is. I think it's such an interesting thing to think about, like these, multi-100,000 unit GPU data centers with the best models and proprietary increasingly and stuff, right? Run by some of these companies. And then devices like that are context, doing everything. It's the problem you just pointed out. It could be as simple as just install the OS update or put the Google Chrome plugin here. It's like, it's a bridge now.
Yeah.
And now we have full fidelity to all of the desktop, and it's a very lightweight thing.
Yeah.
Then you're tapped in. That's in the cloud. This is in the cloud. We're good. Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's like, it's a little, it's a powerful position to be in.
Yeah. That, like, the glasses stuff is really interesting. Like, I feel the right distribution and the right way to go viral is actually what's going to matter there. So if you have like an amazing use case, which is like repeatedly viral, and you can just over and over recreate this, then it's definitely a winner. But the question is, what is the greatest use case you can find there? And I think the company which will actually find it is going to win, because they're just going to double down before everyone else. And that's how I think about this, because if you're building something B2C, it's rarely the question about the technology. It's really rarely. It's more about the question: do you actually know how to distribute this? Do you actually know all the pipeline? And do you actually understand your people? That might
be a good segue to your next project. But before we do that, did you have anything else you wanted to wrap up on the learning and the OS integration?
I feel like the OS integration is it's double-edged sword. It's amazing because it's how powerful it is. But it comes with a lot of pain of integration and actually making it work and figuring out some really low level details. For example, then I was trying to record the audio from my computer. Then you're wearing headphones. You cannot just record the microphone to get the transcription. You have to record the audio and the microphone on your headphones. And the problem is that macOS doesn't really allow you to nicely do this. So it literally will take an engineer. I know the companies whose engineer, it took maybe 2-3 weeks just to figure this one out, and still it's not a clear solution. So it's kind of double-edged sword, but once you kind of tackle this, I feel like it's a lot of pleasures of getting the feedback back, oh my God, this actually works.
Cool. Fun. Neat stuff. All right. Next up, then you've got your current startup. You've got Stormy.
Yes.
You pivoted completely. Different idea totally. Tell us how you got there.
Yeah, so then I was doing my previous product, which is a macOS application. I figured that really painful part of it is the distribution. It's really insane how much effort you have to make. You have to hire a person or an agency, and they're going to do all this work for you. And the question is there actually a different way to do this? It feels.
Did you start to do that stuff and realize how painful it is? Just slog.
Yes, and I was what if I can automate this? Because people just I can't believe it's 2025, and this is actually the go-to way to solve this.
Show us a query. Run a thing, because I think people will get it right away, how powerful it is.
Okay, cool. Let me just go to the website. Yeah, so for example, I'll be searching for, let's say, influencer who reviews technology and talks about voice AI.
Cool. How long does the search take to run?
It's going to be really fast.
Okay.
Let's actually pick a bigger number of followers, so it's going to be faster. And basically, it's going to help you and generate for you the criteria. So for example, English, creates technology, content reviews, and discusses voice AI technology. And then just click search.
And I think my intuition, and I was on a customer call with you the other day. But my intuition for this is what we heard from a professional marketer, right, who's done this at scale, is that there's kind of a long tail of influencer. And it's a scale thing, and the economics break down to reach them. How do you even find them? But if you can engage them and aggregate, that's huge. That was the deal, right? And I could totally see that, because I've worked with the larger scale guys, and the ones who've really figured out are charging an arm and a leg, and it doesn't work out on that side. So this is the premise. Okay. So what are we seeing?
So we're actually seeing that it went. So in the background, it went over hundreds of thousands of influencers, and it checked for every single criteria we have just defined.
Are you crawling and caching these 100,000 things, or are you doing it on the fly?
Crawling and caching. That's a good description. Cool. So for example, here the criteria match is just checked whether the channel is about the technology. And the second criteria with heading discusses the AI. And here you can see that he's talking about the natural language processing and the voice AI tag. And
you have like a bunch of background workflows that are analyzing all these accounts and summarizing and tagging and sort of making it searchable. Then you vector index it all and that kind of a deal.
Yes, that's kind of exactly how it works. It's a lot of background overhead, which you don't have to experience at all. You just see the results.
Yeah, cool.
And the idea is that you just click like, I don't know, find me this person's email, and if the person's email is like available, is gonna find it.
Cool.
And here we go. Like the main bottleneck is that once you're searching for so many influencers, you need to find their email, you need to send them an email, and it just takes an enormous amount of time, and you have to negotiate with them because sometimes they're interested and most of the time they're actually not. And
can I give you a query just to sort of kick the tires on it? Like, let's do like speech and debate coaching. Speech and debate.
Okay. So speech and debate coaching.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Because this is one I happen to know that a lot of like high school kids are into that.
Yeah.
Also turn into tutors, and there's probably 1 million people like doing content, but it's very niche and very small.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So I'd love to see if you find it.
Yeah.
My friend the other day was literally asking, "Hey Joe, do you know any speech and debate coaches for my son?" Yeah. I'm like, "No. How would I find them?" This is interesting.
So another thing I noticed is that like. It almost feels like, okay, this is maybe that you have to do all of this dirty work actually did, I think.
Nice. Did it find some?
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
Reality is broken.
Yeah.
Wait. How do you say like speech and debate coaching? Yeah, I guess like so do you want to find the channels who are like emphasizing how to communicate stuff, how to talk, right? Did I get this right?
Well, I mean, like there's a hobby or an extracurricular activity called speech and debate, where they do Lincoln Douglas debating and speech competitively tournament stuff. That's what I'm really getting at. It's people who are, doing that as an activity and putting it out there on social.
Yeah.
Who might have classes or might have tutoring or might have whatever.
Yeah. So for example,
there you go. Okay.
This is the person who's like basically doing this.
Okay. This is like more speech coaching in general sense, but you're finding hits.
Speech and coaching. I think like if we define the queries like more precise, like how do you exactly specify them? So it's more like a prompt problem.
NSDA is one of the agencies. If you put that keyword in there, it might filter down.
It probably will help as well to find it better.
Sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the idea is that like maybe actually this whole thing that people have to search for the influencer is like a symptom of a larger problem that they need to kind of promote their product, but there is like no other way than the manual. So maybe there's like, so I'm still keeping my mind open about what is the best solution, because this definitely feels like a hack. Like we're doing this, we're like automating this outreach, etc. But maybe there is like a way to actually make something even bigger there.
You're doing the finding piece and you're doing the outreach piece. So there's kind of like a few problems. One is how do you find them? Two is how do you outreach to them?
Yes.
You got to find the email and then you got to do the action, and doing the action at scale is not easy.
Yeah.
And then third is you've got to like negotiate or contract or you got to get a deal. And then fourth is probably content. I need to get a piece of a campaign. I need to execute a campaign after I've contracted with these people.
Yes.
I need to go and they need to execute. We need to measure results. But if you could orchestrate all of that, then I have a brand new market. I have a good scalable marketing channel, which has always been a hard thing with influencers.
Yes.
How far does your vision? How many of those are you solving?
So at the moment, we help with basically finding those people and sending them like the first email and start the negotiations. And as a part of kind of like agency service, we can like do everything end to end. I didn't have to even.
Oh, you're gonna have an agency service.
So you didn't even have to think about this like about anything. It's all end to end handled. You just get the pieces of content back and the influencers, and you don't have to face this UI. Cool. We just do it by ourselves. And
it's fun to hear. It's fun to hear you talk just from a non-tinkerer point of view. In a way, like you're the consummate tinkerer in my mind, but then sitting here and hear you like kind of being the consummate hustler, like no, if you produce the agency, they don't have to see that. It's like more money, it's more value. Let's go. It's cool because I think when you marry those two things, the tinkering and that's where you have a really special opportunity.
And like for me, the question is like, is there actually an even better solution in the era of AI? How you can I can help with my company, your company to grow.
Yeah.
And I mean, the answer is like, okay, maybe we can still use the influencers and the people, but maybe the next big thing is actually having AI as an influencer who are like promoting who have like more this automated way of promoting things, and they still feel more real. And like, for me, like the question is like, maybe there is a way to create a different type of platform for promoting your stuff. And maybe there's a way to create AI influencers who will be like, 3D avatars generated talking.
Yeah.
And it's like so many points which you can hit.
If you fill the social channels with entities that you created, that's more defensible, right? And valuable.
Exactly.
And profitable.
Exactly.
What about the content creation side? That's an obvious one too, with the video and image models getting so good. Character consistency is now here for image. It's like simple now. It used to be hard or impossible. Video, obviously, getting better in that regard, and still a little expensive. But the idea of like my brand and my style guidelines and my product catalog, but like please adapt it for this, to certain guardrails visually and with interaction, so that it meshes with the host's channel. Anything you can take my intuition is to take the friction out of these long tail influencers and push them the content too. Then it's even easier for them, and they're looking for great content too. Right. So then as a brand, you're like, I'll pay for that. So why you didn't start there? Are you getting there? Is that there's tons of people doing that? I think we're starting to see
with AI influencers.
No, content
generation.
Channels. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I just want to. This is the first problem I face.
Yeah. How long have you been working on this?
So I mean, with the Stormy, I feel like 3 months in
Faster.
total. I would
you
say.
need to move faster, Robert. I'm kidding.
Actually, I do.
No, this is great. No, I'm kidding.
Most of the time,
I would have guessed it a lot longer.
It was like reverse engineering this stuff and just making it work. I feel like the reverse engineer was like the biggest part. And
how big is your team right now?
So at the moment, it's just 2 people working on this.
Can you talk briefly about your development process, your tooling? Like, do you use Cursor, using Claude Code now?
I'm using Cursor, Claude 3.7, always in thinking mode.
Okay.
Like classic stack with a Python, React.js, Next.js. I'm trying to not overcomplicate this because I want the other people to come in and like understand what's going on there and really quickly to start bringing the value.
How far up the development mindset are you giving over to AI? In other words, like a lot of developers are still just like basically doing advanced code complete, and then of course there's other people who are like, I write PRDs and then I iterate through to like a design spec, and then I have an agent system that kicks it all off. Where are you on that spectrum? I'm just curious.
So I'm being very precise about what I need to do. Like I consider myself a senior developer, and I just know exactly which piece of code I need to hit. I know exactly how it should look like, and I just use my voice to explain what do I want it to do, and explain what is the function, what are the loops inside, and what are the input, the output, which files should it use. I tag a lot of files, and I'm just being extremely precise because I know that like a lot of the vibe coders, they just please do this and this, like they don't understand like. But if you actually like, I coded this myself like long before I was going on, so I understand like what needs to happen, how it needs to happen, what APIs it needs to use, and I just describe it like extremely well.
Okay.
And
this is where I'm at too. I mean, I have high conviction that at least today that works best. And I've tried. I'm sure you've tried vibe coding just to let's hand more over, see what happens, and you get bad API choices, you get bad architectures, you get stuff that invents a new pattern that doesn't use the pattern you already use, whatever, and it just becomes impossible. Then have you ever gotten to the point where you do that and then you're like, do I throw it away or do I refactor? And then you start refactoring, it gets worse.
I just throw
it away.
I just restored the checkpoint and I go back.
I think this is fascinating because even 6 months ago we would have been, this is all new, and like you wonder, it's moving so fast, what it might look like 6 months from now.
I feel like there is I feel like it didn't change that much within the last half of the year for me. It definitely became better, 100%. But I feel like in half of the year, it's not going to be completely different. It's just going to be like 10, 20% better. But I think we are not going to like explore the new dimensionality of the coding. I feel.
Do you say that because the pace of model improvement is tapering a little bit, it seems? Yeah,
it feels like they're kind of hitting the wall of the benchmarks they have, and
therefore it won't fundamentally change.
And I don't think this is the context problem. Like the context solution with the infinite context definitely will help, but I am not exactly sure this is the solution. But it definitely is part of the solution.
Are you a Claude 3.7 diehard? There's a kind of 3 camps. There's like a bunch of people who are like, nah, 3.5 is better, and then there's 3.7, and then there's some people are like 2.5 Pro or nothing. And then some people are like, I use them for different reasons, different situations. Where are you on that?
I just use Claude 3.7 everywhere with thinking and Max and whatever. It works best.
It works best, or you just have no need to try to optimize for
I have
that?
no need. I tried to use GPT 4.1. It's awful. I tried to use Gemini. It doesn't even work. It never even triggers the function. Claude is like the most reliable, most optimized.
Yeah. So you're like you could press further, but upon initial results, it's not worth it. Probably.
Yeah, and O3 is like extremely expensive, and I found like it's missing the context half of the time. So it's
the only thing I've really come to say, okay, I'll use O3 for this is where I'm working on a large scale obscure bug fix across multiple systems.
Yeah.
Okay, give it all there and just come up with the answer. And it's great for that.
I don't trust it with those solutions. I feel like it's always going to kind of fuck up.
Well, no, I had it like once be like, honestly, it was like, you need to tweak this and add this and refactor that through. And also you need to log into Zoom Pro and there's an advanced setting you need to change. And I was like pretty impressed with that. Because when I was trying to fix the same thing in Claude, it was just having me tweak the code and it was never fixing it.
I see.
And this thing figured out like I had to change a setting on the cloud provider side, which was really cool. So I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, maybe I should try it, but it's like extremely expensive. 0.3.
How much are you spending per month on Inference just for development?
On Cursor, I spend around. I have 7 subscriptions, I think.
7, like what are they? Of Claude?
Yeah, 7. So they had like these 7 monthly subscriptions. I think at my peak I had like 7. Okay. I think maybe now I have like maybe 5 or 6. I'm not sure, but like I feel like always going over the limit.
Oh, I see. So you're adding another subscription just to get more limit?
Yeah. This is how it works.
So how much money is a subscription right now?
Like I think it's $20, so maybe 140, 150 a month for the Cursor.
Okay. So how many subscriptions do you have active now? You said 5?
So I think my check is like 140 a month
cool.
with additional usage. So I think like 7 says up, but they changed their model, so I'm confused.
I'm raw dogging it with like Claude Code, and I'm about 360.
Oh wow, 360. Claude, okay, yeah. Is Claude Code better?
I'm not a terminal guy.
Okay,
but that's not why I like it better, and I do like it better. The reason I like it better is because the constraint of being in the terminal forces me to do more upfront thinking and specking, and I'm going to get better results from that.
Interesting.
And then I do find it does a better job of like, well, at least it's more explainable. It's telling me like, hey, I'm going to grep for this in your code base, and I'm going to do some stuff, right? And I find that it builds trust with me that I can rely on the result I'm going to get. Yeah, does that make sense?
It's a little bit,
a little obscure when you're inside Cursor.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. But it's like maybe they're all going to build their own Cursor. I mean, OpenAI is going to buy Vinserve. Maybe Claude is going to merge with Cursor. I don't know.
Yeah. There's another one that just hit my radar. Oh, I wish I could.
Claude?
Claude, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard people just go bonkers for that. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I saw a lot of people using this as well, but I wasn't sure like if it makes sense.
Yeah. What's the gist of it?
Huh?
What is the gist of Claude?
I have no idea. I think it's like you just open source and it has like more context, and you put in raw like it. You put in more context in, and you're paying for raw prompt tokens, which is an advantage if you're just beginner, probably. But if you're like me, I want the service, I want the uptime, I want the best, like optimized, and I have an opinion that like open source may not actually get there.
Yeah, interesting. What about how do you keep up with everything? There's new models dropping, there's new tools dropping, new techniques. Like what are your go-tos for keeping up with it?
I feel just read Twitter, and I feel the best pieces of content usually come from just like newsletters, which are reviewing the Twitter.
I have to criticize the YC like ecosystem has gotten really good at like perverting some of the channels for promotional purposes. You know what I mean? Whereas used to like I think some of the annoying stuff on Twitter, and maybe it's not those people, it's actually the content makers, not even the founders. Yeah. But both those entities are doing a good job of like making stuff seem more important and significant than it actually is. Yeah. So then I have to pull it down and play with it and realize that it's BS.
Yes. There is actually a lot of this, and I feel like they actually high signal people. They're not posting on Twitter. Yeah. And now just give it like read it to see like who launched what's going on there. Yeah. Is there anything cool? But most of the time, like I feel like newsletters are the way to actually figure out like
deeper thinking, longer form analysis on stuff.
Yeah, and they actually like there is like a newsletter. I think it's like AI like Smog something. Yeah. I think. And it like basically summarizes the discords of all the
that's a cool one.
channels. I've been following like this since the beginning of like when it started. It's like amazing. Like I was like, why am I still reading Twitter again? If it does all the Discord summarization, best posts.
That's a good resource tip. So anything else in Stormy AI you want to talk about or show us?
I feel now I think like it basically explains the product. We're going into a direction of like basically automating this all end to end. So I think like maybe the power move for us is actually to make this all of this internal instead of just selling this to people. Just like having us using this instead of other people to have like higher margin in the business. We'll see.
So the entity, the Y Combinator, the pivot to this 2-person company, getting some early traction.
Yeah.
Built a remarkable amount of stuff in a short amount of time and off to the races.
Yes. I mean,
very cool.
Trying our best to get the $1 billion company valuation. Let's see how it goes.
Cool. You'll probably get inbound from this video.
Hopefully.
All right. So let's see. How did you first come across AI Tinkerers?
I think one of the person from Toronto has reached out to me on Twitter and was like, "Hey, I liked your demo about this first thing." It was like with the computer vision on your computer.
Was it Ottawa or Toronto?
Maybe it was Ottawa. I don't know.
Because Ottawa High is always doing that. It sounds like
I think it was Ottawa. Yes, maybe. I don't know.
That's cool.
I'm sorry.
That's awesome. But somebody reached you out. And
I think it was Ottawa. Yeah.
What's this? Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And basically, I was like, "Yeah, sure, I can present." And I was just like jumping the Discord.
Wait, you presented in Toronto?
No, it was on Discord, I think, or
like did a virtual. Yeah.
It was virtually, and I just explained, and people asked me a couple of questions. Cool. How did I do this? And it was like after the viral demo, so it kind of makes sense for everyone to like check it out. How does it work? And I made it all open source. Nice. So it was pretty cool. And I think like just after this, it was on my mind.
Yep.
Then I went to the Berlin one. I presented there, and I feel like my stuff with the local models and local vector embeddings also went kind of viral on Twitter after I presented on the Berlin one, and I got to meet like the best people like so far in my life just from this Berlin AI Tinkerers event. I moved like. The story was I was living in Wrocław in Poland, and after the Berlin event, I canceled my rent in Wrocław the same day and moved to the hacker house in Berlin the next week.
Nice.
And actually, the story was like I started to build Fixkey, and I didn't even go back to Wrocław, even though I had just a backpack with a couple of clothes for a couple of days, but. The co-founder of the Fixkey allowed me to crash in his apartment, so I actually never went back to Poland. I canceled the rent, and I was. So
you went for a meetup and literally stayed.
Yes, I literally stayed,
That's awesome.
And I was like, I'm gonna tell this story to everyone.
There's a surprising number of stories like that, and Killian, you mentioned earlier, was driving like 2.5 hours down to Seattle for our meetup, and I figured this out after a few times.
Yeah.
And, I live in Bellingham. Bellingham. You drive down and you drive back every time just for the meetup. That's incredible, And then I was like, "What are you working on?" And actually, Killian was the first person that the first instance of anything that was like truly an agent was Killian. This was like almost 3 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
This was like before people were building apps or anything. Yeah. Like he had an agents running. He was like going all in. No, autonomous, get work done. Like here's what I built. I was like self-taught programmer, just so creative and talented. It was like, wow, maybe you should start a company or move to Seattle. Amazing. It's fun to meet people like that. I can see how you would be taken in by a community.
I think Tinkerers also maybe like this couple of times, like from Wrocław to Berlin, then from Berlin to Zurich, we had a flight literally, and I felt like it was definitely worth it.
Amazing. Tell us about the hackathon that we just did here with OpenAI.
Okay, so we started working on this Unitree robot, and we tried to reverse engineer it. So the idea is that. Yeah. Oh, it's pretty heavy as well.
Yeah, it is.
So we tried. Maybe I don't know where you put it.
Cool. This is like how much? 20,000, 2,000? No, 2,000.
$2,000, yes.
$2,000
from Hong Kong before the taxes.
Really, that's probably 40 pounds.
Yeah. And the idea is that like we try to like it's not exactly, it doesn't have exactly an API, but you can reverse engineer it in order to control it. And the idea is that we try to do this until 4 a.m. And we got it to work in a couple of times, but it was so unreliable that we just kind of have to give up, because it was like, 1 out of 10 times it was able to connect, and it took us like 30 minutes to connect. And it was like, oh man, like we're at the AI Thinkers Hackathon and we're reverse engineering the Unitree robots. So it was kind of, not so cool. But we started working on something else, and
it was cool that you
Hackathon.
put it away and finished. Who was your teammate?
His name is Dominic. He actually runs the Hacker House from Berlin.
Right.
And he was the person who invited me to live in the Hacker House in Berlin.
Yeah.
And this kind of kick-started my whole AI Tinker career. I went like full time, all in, like just hacking every single day, talking with the best people in there. There is like Johannes from Prime Intellect, who was also living there. The Race from the Founders Fund recently. And
Isn't like Ling Fuse from there?
Not from this Hacker House, but they're kind of related. They're visiting a couple of events. But it's like, it's a community there.
Yeah.
And it's definitely worth checking out if someone is a hacker.
Yeah, Berlin seems really like stuff's going on. And Dominic's obviously.
Yeah, Dominic is great. Like he's running this Hacker House,
incredible.
Extremely efficient. I don't know how he's doing. He has like a magic tricks in his pocket, but like.
Very cool. Yeah, awesome. Is there any where people can find your work and follow along?
I think on Twitter, if you go to my Twitter, which is like x.carmich. I have a weird old name I have from long ago.
Cool.
Yeah, it's this one. .carmich. This is me.
Perfect. Cool. Follow along there. Like and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for coming on the show. This is great.
Thanks for having me.
So cool to get to hang out with you at the hackathon and get to know you a little bit. And so do this. Appreciate the time.
Nice. Let's do it. Thank you.